Now, we have another name, so write this one down. Thutmose. This is a sculpture of the queen, Nefertiti, #1 wife, and it's not finished, so she doesn't have her eye finished or that side of her face finished. So something happened, and this figure was set aside and not finished. And what's useful about it is that it was still in the workshop of Thutmose, and his name, hieroglyphs for his name, were all over the workshop. So we know who he is, and that he was working for them. And I want you to notice that she has a very elongated neck. And she was also described as the most beautiful woman in the land. You can see that she's very beautiful. Is it a portrait of her? We have no way of knowing, but something interesting is happening alongside all this. This is his mom. This is Akhenaten's mom. Her name is T, Queen T. I love her, and you know why I love her? She has resting bitch face. Yep, she's old, connective tissue's gone. She's got some things to say. Now, when he was being chosen, actually when he was a kid, no one thought he would ever be pharaoh. They thought he was a little weird. So they had like lists of all the sons of his father who could be the potential pharaoh, and they die, and he gets it. And in part because she's on his side. She makes sure he gets the job. So she is a very powerful figure. I love her hair. Okay, enough on that. Doesn't she look a little bit more naturalistic than what we've looked at before? So maybe portraiture is starting to become a thing. I just said no portraiture, and now I'm like, well, look at her. Okay, this is a relief sculpture. And it's in this reverse technique, so it's carved down to make the bodies and figures, and then shaped as it's lower than the surface area. And you can see we've got Akhenaten over here. Now I have to tell you, this image does show up on tests sometimes, and a lot of students, not the majority, but enough for you to be aware of it, misidentify Akhenaten as Nefertiti, which means that they actually identify Nefertiti as Akhenaten. So let's take a look at this picture. At the top, we have the Aten, the sun god. And I want you to notice it has all these rays coming out. And at the end of its rays, it's got hands. And it's giving to the people. It's giving to them. And notice he's holding a little kid in his hands. And she reaches her arm out to the Aten just as he reaches his hand out to the Aten. Now, what's kind of interesting is that Nefertiti is looking at him and his kid reaching out to the sun deity. She has another kid on her lap, and if we look carefully, we can see this kid has breasts. In fact, there are 3 girls. And she's talking to her mom and pointing at them. Something is happening. And then over here is a smaller kid, also with breasts. And she's reaching up in the way little kids do and playing with her mom's earrings and poking her in the face. What do you notice about the kids?
They're like, they're displayed with like breasts and stuff. They're probably not actually like kids in this portrait. It's just that is it like a show of like what's it called? Where like something's bigger is more important.
There is hierarchical scale happening here. Absolutely. Their smallness indicates they're less important than their parents. Yes. They're made of shapes.
No, they're head shapes.
Their heads are definitely unique. They've got elongated heads. There's another thing that's, yes.
Me or Cadence?
What was that?
Me or Cadence?
You can.
Okay. Maybe the fact that only one of them has breasts and the other 2 do is to say that those 2 have gone through puberty already?
Good point, but why is one littler than the others? And this one is kind of hard to tell. Is that a breast or not?
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what you
it's
said.
hard to see it. Okay, so Cadence, did you want to?
Oh, I was just gonna say that maybe they don't actually have breasts. It's just like depicting them as female.
That's possibly true too. Their bodies are kind of elongated, kind of like their heads. So that may be a stylistic Amarna thing going on. It could also indicate that they're showing the children as adults. So kind of like adults have political authority in a way that kids don't. We're not 100% sure. Now what we do know, so this is where people get freaked out. So when you're writing on the test, or you decide to write on an Egyptian topic for your research paper, don't get too focused on the incest component. Because remember, we're doing art history, so you're gonna mention it, but you're not gonna focus on it. Okay, so what happens? It's not just Akhenaten. He's gonna marry this daughter.
Oh,
And it's not just him. This had been going on for a really long time, and their logic was that actually a lot of the political, it's almost like they're a matriline. So does anybody here know what a matriline is?
is it just like pure blood?
A matriline means kind of your significance in the culture passes through your mom.
Mm.
And most cultures today are patrilineal. There are some matrilineal cultures, but it's a lot less than there are patrilineal cultures. And so we have, in matrilines, you might think that women would get to be the political leaders, but no. There's like an example of exactly one in Mexico where that's the case. So if the mother's line is really, really important, high status women within that line are going to carry more power. And so the more that family's bloodlines pass through women of the family, the more power is consolidated. It's very creepy and disturbing. And they're not just saying they're doing it, and they're having children together. And this is, I know you're going to be shocked, shows up in their bodies because they have significant loss of diversity in their DNA, meaning they're very vulnerable to all sorts of things. One of the things they get is a significant skin condition that is like a lifelong talking skin condition. And it seems to run in that particular dynasty in their royal line.
I was gonna ask if that's also linked to King Tutankhamun having many birth defects as well.
He's part of the line.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why they're doing it. They're consolidating religious and political power in their bodies, literally. Okay, it's disturbing, and it's okay for it to be disturbing. Okay, here we go, close up, just to show you with the shadows that you can see kind of this transformation of their bodies. We've got the soft, squishy belly on Akhenaten right there, the elongated limbs, and not that focus. Look at his arms and his legs here. Remember how when we were looking at the Old Kingdom pharaohs, we were seeing these muscular legs and arms. When we were even looking at Hatshepsut, we were seeing more muscular pharaonic representation than we're seeing right here. Here's another example. This is the Sphinx. It's an Akhenaten Sphinx, and it's basically getting blessings from the Aten. All right, so when Akhenaten dies, the whole thing crashes. And they have to name an heir. And that heir is either Akhenaten's son or his nephew. And his name is Tutankhaten. And when he takes power, he is told by the kind of reigning general, who's like the military advisor. And he says, son, we can't keep staying out here in the middle of Amarna, in the middle of nowhere, disconnected from our kingdom. And the people are really angry, and you're just not going to be able to sustain your kingship if you don't change. And so he changes his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun and re-embraces the Amun and the traditional gods. The temples and priests are restored. People are happier. He's just a kid when he takes over. He's literally like 11 years old. And he only lives to be 18 or 19 years old. He breaks his leg. It's thought that perhaps it was in a chariot lion hunting expedition, something we saw out of Mesopotamia. So he breaks his leg. The leg is probably a compound fracture. It's probably one of those that bursts through the skin. And so it becomes infected, and that's what's going to kill him. Okay, so what we're looking at is this lovely kind of trunk or chest with all of this kind of inlaid design on it and painted design. And this is in his tomb. And what's interesting about Tutankhamun is that when he died, it was so unexpected. They hadn't had decades to build his tomb site. They hadn't had time to build him a temple. He's just dead. And so they seem to have taken a tomb that was being used for someone else, one of the older queens, and they repurposed it. So 2 rooms, they repurpose it for him. And what's interesting is because it happened so suddenly, because they hadn't been working on it for ages and ages, because it wasn't for a pharaoh, people didn't know where it was. And that means the thieves, unlike all the other kind of grave sites and tomb sites, had not really been touched. Someone broke it open and they knocked some things over and spilled them, but then something happened, and that's it. So in the first room, there's some evidence of damage, and then in the second room, everything was there. And it gives you a sense of what this was like. And so it included this. So I want you to notice, here he goes charging off into battle against his enemies, and his enemies are crushed under his chariot horses. We've got registers right here. You look over here and we see these sphinxes. They're kind of hard to see because they're at the angle. So this is the face of the pharaoh, face and face. And then here are little lion bodies of the pharaohs mounting up right here. And then we have another scene of battle up there. And we have inlay along here in these black and gold zones. And what we're looking at here is a set of coffins to hold his body. And so the outer coffin is very big, and we kind of tend to call that thing in archaeology and in our history a sarcophagus. It means bone eater, so it contains the bones of the dead. And I want you to notice that it's covered in gold, and it's very elaborately adorned and decorated. It has all these pieces of glass, it has stone, it has inlay. It's very, very elaborate, very, very expensive. And this is the innermost one. So very similar, but different. And this would have contained his mummified body, this inner one. And then, finally, you think, well, that's enough, right? No. Over his mummified head and shoulders, we have this death mask of Tutankhamun, showing this young man with his added-on ceremonial beard and this elaborate headdress regalia, and the buzzard and the cobra that show the united Upper and Lower Egypt that had persisted for ages upon ages, and all this inlay. A wooden chair covered in gold. And notice something we've seen so many times before already in this class.
Lions.
We've got lions. Aren't they fabulous? Holding up the chair. When this was discovered, it caused a craze, kind of in the 1920s, for European furniture to have lions on it in an Egyptian style.
Is he the most recent pharaoh to be discovered?
No, we have later ones. He's just the one that had all this stuff.
So is that why he's like the most well known?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you say that the death mask was like that was accurate to like what he actually looked like, or like sort of maybe? If you
Not sure. We do know he had the caulking on his skin, and that's not showing up on the mask. But that may just be idealization. He may have looked like that, but we don't know. Also in the tomb, they found a preserved miscarriages of assumedly his children that didn't make it. Yes.
You said that they returned to polytheism. In the very top, Aten is still up there. Is he still like really?
They're recycling a lot of stuff to have him have stuff go with him into the tomb. So they have a lot of Aten stuff around, and the Aten is not banished. The Aten's just now part of the group again. So, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna have you guys pause, I'm gonna have you break into groups, and I'm gonna have you write up a review on, I think I would carry chalk down here just once. Okay, so on Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and 3 daughters. And then this one is going to be Tut's death mask. And of course, this is where we bring in, we're not just gonna talk about the death mask, right? We're gonna bring in the whole cultural, historical context. So I'm gonna put you in groups. You're gonna contribute to both of them from your memories, from your notes. And so, okay, you 4